In this video, we're going to do a variation on some previous setups on Linux here using Jack Router. This time we're using the KXstudio app Katia instead of Carla. This is a little more of a lightweight application, and we're going to bring plugins through the Jalv command so we can bring in some LV2 plugins. You list it with LV2LS. As you can see, there's quite a bit of plugins here. So you have to know the name of the one you want to use and find it there. And the command is pretty easy. Jalv.gtk, and then that string that you found on the other screen, and then paste that there, and that brings up the plugin. I'll go over that in just a second. Let's initially go over what we're doing here. We're using Reaper for all the plugins. Inside Reaper, where we need VST plugins, are Reaper's own plugins. Then we have Spectrum 3D, which is a Linux app. We have several LV2 plugins, the peak monitor, peak meter, simple scopes, as you see, one for the mumble input, one for the mumble output. We have a mumble output limiter so that we don't get any Opus audio spikes at full volume. So the typical output volume of mumble is about minus 10 dB or so, something like that. And then if something comes in and takes it up to 0, that's really loud. So this limiter stops that from happening. We're using ALSA to Jack plugins from Cadence, which is another KXstudio. We have 14 inputs and 14 outputs on WINE ASIO, which is the Reaper ASIO driver to get into Linux. So first thing we do is start the ALSA audio, ALSA loop to ALSA to Jack bridge. That lets us get YP log running, and in YP log it will stick here once we bring up Pulseaudio. But browser audio, when you bring up Pulseaudio, will divert to it. So that's one way to bring in both the CW keyboard and desktop audio. So I already have a file playing here, and I'll demonstrate that.
If you want to get the aptX codec, that's available.
And that's going through the Pulseaudio plugin right here. So it comes into channel 11 and 12 and out channel 11 and 12 to the sound card. You could even take that to the mumble input if you wanted to share desktop audio on mumble. But right now we're not doing that. We have some plugins already engaged in this. I'm going to start playing this, and I'm going to take the plugins out and then off and on. Hold on. So
an extra cost option, and that has several bit rates that are higher, gets up in the 500 and 600 kilobit per second range. And if you have the ability to handle linear audio over IP, in other words, if your IP connection is good enough, you can do linear audio. We did that as an experiment here at Telos. I streamed audio from Vancouver, Washington State, here in the U.S., to my office here in Nashville for about 6 weeks at 2.5 megabits per second linear audio, just perfect. I mean, there may have been a couple of lost packets here and there, but it was just beautiful audio over the public internet. So if your internet connections are good, if you're managing them correctly, you're going to get really great performance out of the Zip 1. And if you're in a challenging situation, well, here's where the Zip 1 really shines, because the Zip 1 has the ability to behave dynamically. When two Zip 1s are connected to each other, they're all, besides sending audio back and forth, they're also talking on a side channel. They're saying, "How you doing? Are you getting all the audio that you need? Did you drop any packets between me and you?" And the two Zip 1s.
So you get the idea there. Yeah, let's see if we have any X runs. Yeah, we're getting some X runs because of the video. So those pops you heard were because of X runs, and this video recorder that I'm using is taxing the CPU. So I would probably have to go up in buffer size here to compensate for that, but we'll see how it goes. So that's that one right now. So we have the CW keyboard. And the scope of that is on the left. We have a CW file already playing, so we'll see what the output of mumble does. I purposely set the FL Digi on the other computer to go 10 milliseconds rise and fall so you could see how soft that is. And so we can regenerate that. And just like on the air, everybody has a unique signal depending on how they're getting their side tone into the mumble input. But if you want it to remain the same, I have this plug-in suite here, like we've shown you before, where we stabilize the volume, send it to a threshold that sends out a MIDI message at a certain frequency, 700 hertz with note 77, which keys this sine wave synthesizer that's set up right now, 3 milliseconds rise and fall time, attack and release. Goes through a bandpass filter, and let's go ahead and play that again, and then we'll take this filter in and out. So right now the filter's out, and we'll start it playing. And so that's enough of that. And the spectrum analyzer lets you see how wide the bandwidth is coming in to your mumble and going out. So we've got paddles, straight key, and we've got the CW keyboard using WINE in Linux to allow us to use Windows programs. The system is where the mic is coming in. Comes into the first two channels and then out through that regeneration process. We've shown you that before, and this is the CW keyboard from that ALSA to jack. We have a USB mic where we have set up an ALSA in command. Mumble is using the jack load audio adapter command. And this is another function of cadence where we start Pulseaudio after we set up YPlog with this plugin, the ALSA to jack plugin. So that's on the left side. On the right side, we're sending the audio from track 1 to track 5 and 6, 1 and 2, and 3 and 4 go to 7 and 8, so that I can come over here in Reaper. Here's the sound card and adjust how loud I want the side tone to be without affecting what goes to the mumble input. That's very important. So we set that. So here's what's going to the mumble input. And you see we have minus 15 right here. And this is the send command that sends it to the next track, or the track that's called keys monitor. And that's where I can adjust it with that slider. But it won't affect what goes out on this track at minus 15. And we've done the same thing with the keyboard end. We have a minus 15 going to 3 and 4. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 is what's going over to the mumble input. Now this is like input for the ALSA to jack. We're not using that at the moment. And same thing for this. So Pulseaudio not only have outputs on both the ALSA to jack and the Pulseaudio jack sync, you can, and in some applications, you can choose to use this plugin for the input or the Pulseaudio for the input. So if you wanted to send audio to the input, say of Skype or something, you had that running, you would just wire up whatever you wanted to go to the input of Skype, go right in. Now on my microphone, we have USB mic right here, and it's going through one plug-in. This one right here, VOLA-EX. And it just is a little bit of a gate and a compressor all built in. It's a very, very effective plugin, and it's a JS plugin, and it was free to download and install in Reaper. And it's pretty easy to get it in there. And I think that's about it for the plugins in here. This is one of those LV2 plugins, which is a meter. So that's our VU meter for both the mumble input and mumble output. The two scope plugins in here, one for the mumble input right here and one for the mumble output right there. Those are also LV2 plugins that come out of this list here. And that's the LV2 SISCO Mono plugin. And the Spectrum 3D is this plugin right here. And it just lets us see the spectrum bandwidth of both signals, input and output. And those all fit very well on my 720p laptop screen. And so does this, and I don't have to worry about having anything on top with the this plugin. I kept it at the bottom for the Spectrum 3D plugin here. And you can move this thing around a little bit if you like a different viewpoint, which is kind of cool. Let it go sideways a bit. It's kind of an interesting plugin. It gives a good approximation right there. So you can see the low point and high points of the bandwidth. So that's a good way to monitor everything that's going on the mumble input and mumble output. Everything fits on this screen. This YP log is a great CW keyboard typing screen for QRQ. We've shown you this before. That's my settings that I'm using. And I think that's just about it. So just a little bit of a preview on using CATIA instead of Carla for a little bit less CPU, and just to show you some other things that we're using with ALSA in to get the mic, ALSA out. We're not using it at the moment, but we're using ALSA in command to do this. Special jack, ALSA to jack plugin, the Pulseaudio to jack sync here, so that brings in any Pulseaudio as well. We have this audio adapter command from Mumble so that we get both the input and output of Mumble, and I've gone over that before. And the LV2 plugins and the Spectrum 3D. Reaper really makes it easy, and I've got 14 pins so that we can get everything on here. But Reaper really makes this whole process a lot easier. It's a great program. So thank you for watching.